Yes, sir, please.
Okay. Audible
Yes, yes.
and slides.
Audible, visible.
Okay.
Looks
Thank you.
good. Yeah.
Right. Good evening, everybody. And it's nice to be back into a little bit of a teaching mode. One of the very important things that happens in life is the selection into postgraduate studies. And during that study, certain essential activities need to be performed. And the reason and why and how you do it is what I am going to briefly touch upon this evening. I have tried to make it interesting. I've tried to make it a little more different from the others by using my usual CS style. And so this is going to be a code of study to be followed by the graduate for completing successfully the curriculum requirement of what is called the thesis. What's the difference between a thesis and a dissertation? Now, these two words are always used together for meaning the same thing. They're very interchangeable words because the actual difference is very minute. And the key difference is the thesis marks the end of a degree program, whereas a dissertation is a project done during a PG teaching program. Since this PG dissertation, this work of surgical postgraduate is to be submitted at the end of his course, it is termed thesis, and we will use the word thesis to refer to this period of study. The words audit, research, theses, and dissertation will keep occurring throughout the talk, but the emphasis and the meaning is towards the word thesis. Congratulations to all the young PGs who have entered, and wish you the best of studies for you so that you can get your certification properly and come through the DNB or the MS degrees by the completion of these formalities. Now, it's very important that I share a calendar schedule. How do you do it? Because I know most of the MS people do not deal with diploma students, but in the DNB fold, we also have post-diploma PGs coming to do their 2 years in DNB, and they too also have to produce the thesis. So I just want them to note this little career guideline in that by the end of the third month of a PG teaching course, 3 years, he should have selected his study with the protocol. And that reduces to 2 months for the diploma students. The protocol acceptance and start of study should be within 6 months, and by 4 months for the diploma students, post-diploma students. The study period is about 21 months, that is a year and a half of time by which you should complete collecting your data. The analysis and other things have to be done by the 24th month, and printing signatures and other things to be done at the end of the 24th month, or it can go up to the 30th month, but then we want things to finish in time. I'm giving huge gaps in between so that you're all finished and able to spend the third year of your studies with the gaining of knowledge, which is more important for you. Most people end up doing their dissertation thesis works in the final year and find themselves short of time. You literally lose your study time, but you also rush through this little process and you do not get it done properly. Why theses? Now, I have mixed up two lectures which I had separately, and that's why the change in color of slides is coming through. Like research, one of the important things in our studies is to learn to question and then learn to answer the question also. And research is that essential activity which is used for the advancement of scientific knowledge. You get newer technology and treatments coming through. It's a systemized effort to gain further knowledge, and discovery consists of looking at the same thing as everyone else, but thinking different, so that you get some kind of a little advancement into the core of science. There are a couple of little things that can come up to mind. In the Stone Age person, he rubbed two twigs together and didn't realize that it caused a fire. But that itself, the way he did it and got it to generate heat, is a kind of research. And that's a simpler thing version of what we'd like to do today. We always need a question which must precede, must be first set up, and then you look for the answer. The first few steps are the most difficult, they're the toughest, but it is very important to start. You begin, you take your first few small steps. When you're given a big apple, you cannot eat the whole apple in one shot. You have to take small bites. And that is why research, when done in systematic steps, becomes a much easier task. um, a big question on research is the integrity. You tend to bluff, you tend to sideline, you tend to cook up, you tend to adjust to what the senior tells you, and that defeats the entire purpose of trying to make it original or something that is new that could help the progress of science. The work develops why thesis and research. Again, it helps in the overall development of every postgraduate. It's not just to learn surgery and theory, you also need to develop patience, curiosity, the writing of the work, the reading up of material, some statistical aspects. How do you manage a product? How do you collect data? How do you do it? A little bit of management skills come in. And the problem that is being said to you and how you analyze it. And this gives you critical thinking. Every patient is a research or a thesis. It's critical thinking and looking at the other things with patience and curiosity that helps make you a far better doctor, let alone surgeon. The CS for steps, I am going to give you 40 clear steps, which will be in sequence, clear steps, to help the cub surgeon. Cubs are small surgeons, young surgeons, the postgraduate, and his counselor guide, who is the senior person, to carry out satisfactorily this important aspect of surgical studies. First step, start early. Don't be diffident. Don't be worried. You have to go ahead and meet your senior. You meet your chief. The young postgraduate must meet the concerned mentor and seek wise counsel. You cannot start this on your own. It is a new activity. It is something that you need to initiate from your side. Seniors will sit back tight and say, wait, let us see. Many seniors want to see the enthusiasm of the junior in trying to come forward. And at this point, the biggest holdback or the biggest hurdle for you is your senior postgraduate, who will give you some ideas and something. Hey, don't worry, it will take time. You do this, you do that. And you, being the lowest in the department at this stage, get pushed into delaying this initiation of meeting the senior or the guide. Choose the subject and topic. Now, this is done a little bit in an analytical way, in the sense you must come to know the recently done topics, and you must have a suggestions and advice of the senior that is given to you, and you have to choose a topic. I'm coming to how you will choose the topic and base your question short. Conduct a search of literature. Just a broad topic may be given to you, like say varicose veins or hernia or wound healing or some lab parameters. Using that one topic, it is up to you to read the literature and go across the various little aspects of that topic that will help you arrive at a question in that topic, at something that you can look at something that seems to you as a lacuna, as a gap. Is that knowledge available? Can I complement it? Can I help it? Can I make a little difference in the available literature of what is happening? Go through the relevant literature, pick out 2 or 3 Indian studies on this topic. There is nothing not already done. Everything has been done, and we are not looking for earth-shattering new research. We are just looking for something to make it an interesting and sequential study. As I said, look for the lacuna. Now you have to constitute what is called a selective research question. You have to look at the topic, you have to build the topic up, you have to find out where there are little gaps, and then the light will shine to you and say, let me look at the effect of 4-inch versus or 10 centimeter versus 15 centimeter elastocrate bandage in treatment of varicose veins. A very simple thing. It can be developed into so many little parameters that will help you get some little information to tell you that it may be useful for the future. uh, the important step that is at this point is to get the uniqueness of the study. It will also give you the possibilities of the uh, solution that could be offered by the study, and it should be acceptable in the situation that you are in. The research question is an answerable inquiry or a concern. This is the very first step of that research question, the question that you're going to be initiating. I'll talk to you about it. The initial steps, it's the very first act of your research project, and it is the one that will be there. There are 3 types of research questions: descriptive, comparative, and causal. I'll come to that. How do you find questions? How do you get these questions? I'm telling you about varicose veins, and you'll have to look at patients and see if they are going to give you some data. You have to look at other papers and other studies done by other people prior to you, either in the same institution, same university, or in the country, and look at conclusions they have drawn. It's important to attend a few meetings and conferences in the early days for you to see how people are talking about your topics. Yeah, I've taken this varicose veins as a case. Attend all the vascular meets and see what is something new that you could pick up over there. Talk to fellow students because they also would be seeing a number of cases. And importantly, keep your mind inquisitive but open. You must be able to see a gap that is coming through. If you've got a closed mind and say, no, there's nothing new in this topic, everything has been done, your mind will not pick up anything. So it's important for you to keep your mind open. The types or categories of questions that you can ask are causes. Is there a cause for a particular reason? Is there a diagnosis difficulty? Is there a particular intervention of investigation or of laboratory values that will help you in diagnosis? Or are you going to do an intervention? You're going to give some kind of a medication to one group and not to the other group, antibiotic trial or something that involves doing something for the patient, open versus laparoscopic hernia repairs. These are different interventions and you're going to see it. And there is an outcome basis. You can see how the prognosis, did they get better survival? Is there an enhanced or shortened recovery period? Is the quality of life affected? That's how you categorize the kind of questions that are there. And each of these research questions should be based on a population, on a number of people you're studying, on the type of intervention that you're doing, on the comparison. Are you comparing with a non-intervention versus intervention? Are you comparing intervention with another type of intervention? Is there a control group and other things? There are how you will format your question. You look at what outcome you're looking for. And most importantly, you must have a time frame into which all these things must happen. Because your course is of a time frame. It's not an open-ended PhD project where you can take 5 years, 7 years to do your research and then submit your paper. That is different. Here, you're time-bound. Your constraint is, a big constraint is how much you can do in that given time. and the level of solution answer that you're looking at, a solution you're trying to get at. Is it within your specialization, or are you going to go and involve other fields? Like you have a radiological investigation, you're going to ultrasound on your particular topic, so you have to correlate with the radiology or the imaging departments for you to get that thing. Or are you going to improve something in your own system, uh, introducing something from other fields into your uh, field? Or you're trying to create something new, a new technology, a new method, which is a little more serious, a little more detailed, a little more time consuming, and you need to have enough time for follow up to allow these things to happen. Most of the things that we do are by knowing, by using methods which are within your area of specialization, like wound healing rates, or bowel function recovery, or intestinal transit times, or for varicose veins, stripping with a different type of stripper, or the uh, newer methods of varicose veins surgical evaluations, no surgery for the thing, all within the system itself. You can try and get your study to be done. Asking the question, you must know the purpose of your thesis. One main purpose is to finish the requirement of academics. The second is to try and find an answer, because your question will be there. The topic must be interesting. That by going through Google and PubMed and others, you get a number of little topics and work that can be done. Remember, when you study one particular reference, you hit another one in that reference for similar articles, and the whole list of similar articles will come out from various sources. You can look at just the abstracts and see if that is relevant to you, and you can then move on to getting your own topic. You'll get a lot of interesting things if you do this bit of work. This is a personal bit. Your guide cannot do it for you. You can, nobody else can do it. If you spend this 1 month or 2 months browsing through library and through the literature, plenty of informative topics can come up, and you can, even a mundane operation like circumcision will have something, an ingrowing toenail will have something, a lymph node biopsy will have something. So you can always pick up nice little topics and make them small, condensed, focused topics. As I said, the preliminary research has to be done, and you must have open-ended questions. How is this happening? Why is this happening? About the topic. Does this topic matter to you? Try and make it relevant for your system. Look at your facilities and abilities to do it, and this will reflect into your questions that you're going to form. Evaluate your question. Is it the research question? Is it clear? Is it focused? And don't let it get too complicated. When it gets too complicated, involving two systems, or too much of research, or too much of statistical analysis, it becomes big on you. It grows big on you. And when something grows big on you and you're not in level with it, you get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, you're not able to produce a good paper. Like if you take a big unfocused, I'll look at the role of antibiotics in surgery. Now, that's such an unfocused thing, you can't really see. But if you say focus, I look at the role of antibiotics in reducing surgical site infection. Then you can say I'm role of prophylactic antibiotic. Then you can say timing of prophylactic antibiotic. Then you can say dosage of prophylactic antibiotic. There are so many little things that you can do when you focus your particular research question. When you've got that focused question, you have to write your aim. And your aim is exactly what you want to achieve. The purpose. The main question is your aim. That will be supported by a number of little things called objectives. And to these objectives are steps necessary to achieve that aim. And what are these steps? We have a small acronym, SMART. These steps must be specific. That is, who is the population? What is the target? Who are we targeting? Is it a measurable indices? Can we get a measure? Is there a change expected? How much change is expected? Can it be realistically achievable? Can it be accomplished given the current resources? You should not be indulging in personal, patient, or institutional resources without adequate funding. So you have to be sure that you can achieve it. Yeah. Is it realistic? Does it help in the health program? And it is time phased. There must be a timeline. That's why I put the timelines initially itself, so that you learn to finish all the aspects of the thesis within timelines, within the time frame, so that you get something nice and proper to work with. There are various study designs. This is again a little bit of how many different types of studies. See, you can have is there investigator assign exposure? That means you give a particular intervention. Is it experimental? If it is, yes. If it is not there, then it is just observational. You're not doing anything, but you're just studying a disease pattern, the evolution or the symptomatology or relation to pathology or whatever. When you're doing an intervention, there is some kind of exposure. Is it randomized or not? If it is randomized, it becomes a random and controlled trial. But if it is not so, it is non-randomized controlled trial. And that again, the values come down, the effect will be down. If it is an observational study, do you compare it with a group in which it will be analytical or a descriptive again? And if it is analytical, is it cohort? That means you give an exposure and you look at the outcome. You do an intervention, look at the outcome. Or you look at the outcome in a case control kind of thing and relate it to the exposure that the patient has had. And a cross-sectional is when it's a mixture of an intervention and an outcome. So these are different types of studies. It's difficult to talk about each of these in a short 45-minute lecture. So these are words that I have introduced, and I'd like you all to go back and see how how it will fit for you. Clock submission, sorry, to be given, I think I've lost some slides. Why have I gone to slide 40? Just a minute, please. Oh. I don't know why it jumped, but anyway. The main thing is you have to confirm the feasibility or the solvability of your project, the resources and facilities at the hospital, economics, and the cost to the institution and to the patient. You have to check the incidence and prevalence of that particular condition to make sure that enough number of cases have been happening in the last 4 to 5 years, so that in your study period, you'll get enough cases. The aims and objectives must have a clear set. The objectives and aims, generally the aim is the what of the study, what you're going to do. And the objective is the how of the study. How do you do the actual study? What are the other objectives that will be there? The aim will also give you the title of the study. You will get a name for your study, an evaluation of, a study of, or the to look at the effects of something. So you will get a particular title which will give you the main indication of what your aim and your whole research question has been about. Components and schemes. Now, how are you going to go about it? That is your materials and methods. These are the things that need to be used, to be followed. And this gives you the working plan. What is the population? What's the time duration? What are your inclusion criteria? What are your exclusion criteria? And the process by which you're going to collect data, how you're going to analyze it, all that will have to be worked out. Very, very important, corroborate with the statistician at an early stage. Once you've got a faint idea of your research question, even before you set down your aims, talk to the statistician. They will give you very, very good ways of getting a focused research question. and a question that can be answered both by the data you collect clinically and by the statistics they are able to use. 99% of PGs reach the statistician with a whole big jumble of data, which is of no use to the statistician, and he does some funny pictures and graphs here and there. You don't understand what is happening. He himself does not know what he has drawn out as a conclusion for you, and you try and present it. It cuts a very sorry figure for not only yourself, your guide, your department, your institution, and it becomes a kind of a habit not to do it correctly into your career. And that's why we don't have good papers coming out. That's why we do not have proper critiquing of work and for proper analysis of the stuff that comes out in literature. Medicine is a progressive science, and unless we learn these basic steps during our PG course, we will not be able to do it in our class. The statistician will give you sample size. There are formulas to note sample size for various diseases. And he'll also give you scoring and rating scales by which you can evaluate the data. Remember, you're getting clinical descriptive data, but you have to give them scales so that you can get points and use that for statistics. The sample of population, duration, inclusion, exclusion criteria is the correct sample, and the guide and the statistician have to sit together with you and get you initiated into the study. You have to create what is called the pro forma sheet, the sheet to acquire the data, the survey sheet. It must be planned. You must have appropriate boxes and enough spaces for entry. The approval of the statistician so that he knows that the data has been collected by which he can do a proper analysis. Consent sanction. Remember, there's something called patient information sheet. Especially when there are interventions, the patient should be given a sheet and shown what are all the reasons by which you're doing it, what are the outcomes to the patient, what are the dangers, what are the advantages of the patient taking part in your study. You can't directly do anything to them without them knowing everything. And that is called the patient information sheet, and that has to be properly explained. Only after explaining the patient information sheet do you get the informed consent and get their acceptance to do the study. You can't just show the consent sheet and say, please sign and get your, this is what we're doing. You have to give them all the options and available literature to for them to make a clear-minded sanction or consent of the participation in the study. Commercial sponsorship, some of these, in a classical example is the use of tackers in laparoscopic surgery. That's costly. There will be one company who will come and say, use these tackers, we'll give it free to you, you do it free. Or they'll say, you first 10 will be free, the remaining have to be bought. And you will have to make the patient bear a higher expense because of your study. The use of meshes, there are composite meshes, there were little very costly meshes used in ventral hernia repairs, biological meshes. These are all very expensive. And if the company will come forward so that they want some data, something to say that their product is good, they'll ask you to do it and you will get a bias. And you will have to try and get the results in their favor. You know, right now in literature, all these stories about the vaccines that are going on and about the other things that are going on in the research for the COVID disease itself is smacked by company sponsorships trying to achieve something in very short spans without actually going through the full trials and putting everybody to danger because they want to benefit from the money that comes in by the work. So you have to be a little careful on this. And if you have a source of sponsorship, you must explain the conflict of interest, and this must be known and mentioned at the beginning itself. Yes, there are ethical issues, the principles of bioethics. We need to get your ethical clearance from the review boards, even the compensation to patients. Are there vulnerable groups? Are there some groups who cannot um, hit back at you? Are you taking advantage of their poverty or of their occupation to try and do studies? All these things are important, and it's very useful to read the ICMR guidelines, even though you're doing a small thesis for research purposes, and that will give you make your paper come to the ethical standards. By getting these ethical standards, it means you conform to standards, you set up your protocol. In the national board stream, you have to have a protocol which will be submitted so that the board registers your topic and your guide, and they then take you forward they allow you to go forward for the study. So this protocol, the hospital ethics board has to clear it, and the academic board of the department have to clear it, and then you get this protocol written. Once the protocol has been written and has been sent in, don't wait for the acceptance of protocol letter to come from the boards. You start your collection of data. This is a real collection of data. Initially, it'll be slow because you're not sure of your pro forma and your numbers. But as your numbers increase, you'll do it. You'll pick up speed. It has to be careful and serially recorded into the pro forma and taking relative pictures and illustrations as you go along, maintaining the confidentiality of the patient. You need to put some effort. It is committed striving. You have to be regular. Nobody became a great cricketer without spending time at the nets. You cannot get a thesis without going to the patient and doing these entries. Be regular, at least set time once a week to pick up your data related to your thesis work. You need constant supervision with the guide, so you have to interact with them. It's a mandated duty of the guide, but it's not necessary that they will always come and correct you. You have to go behind them and get that thing done. It's a little bit of a personality issue. Some guides are good, some guides are a little harsh. They make you wait. That unfortunately is human nature coming into the picture. We would all like that not to be there, but it is human nature, and some people may find it a little more difficult than the others, but it's not an unsurmountable problem. If you're persistent, if you're gentle, periodic reviews at a set timetable will occur. This gives you the idea of the thesis experience. Oh, I'm doing this much. Boss said this is correct, good. Or no, boss said it's wrong. We have to doing it in a different way. You'll have to do a correction. Mid-course corrections also need to be done. At the same time, read the topic some more. You are now going to be the expert on that topic. You have to gather all the scientific interest, all the surgical inferences, everything, and these all will go through into making this a relevant literature that is available, to making your study more complete. Because at the end of the study, you have to draw inferences, if not only to match your aims and objectives, you also will get data that will tell you whether your aims and objectives were met by the inferences from the data that you have collected. Start writing. You must start writing of them. You do it in your own language. It has to be understandable. Please remember, this copy paste business is there. You must know enough about ownership of information, the implications of copyright. You can't take pictures out of books and just put it over there. And the costs of information, in the sense there are many things that are available, but you have to pay for it. And that is quite expensive. You'll have to know how much it costs to get the information so that you can use it as an official reference. Strictly no to curbing strictly the copy and cut paste business. You can be pulled up for what is called plagiarism. Now it's very easy to check out for plagiarism. Just put a few lines and ask for similar lines in literature, and Google will give you your answer within 3 or 5 seconds, and you'll know that people will know that you have lifted the paragraph or the sentences out of particular articles, and they can pull you up for plagiarism. That has been actually the biggest drawback of almost all Indian scientists and work. Very sad to say that their originality lacks in many studies. So no to copy, cut, and paste. Sort out your data carefully, sort out the data that is in the form, go back to a statistician and get the guidance, and tables and other things can now start be created. Use statistics, the use of the break down the data by the statistics. You will be given a particular statistical package by the statistician. Try to understand it. It will be more than just basic statistics. You'll have to understand how that package is going to be used for your data. It involves comprehension of that data, so that you have to study it. And in this sense, there is a very nice book by one of our own Karnataka surgical colleagues, medical statistics for surgeons, for the medical graduate, basic statistics, written by Dr. Ramakrishna from Bhadravati. It is a good book. I strongly suggest that every PG has an access or owns one of his that book copy. And he not only describes statistics, he gives you roots of getting the statistical analysis done through various websites in the net. And you can just click a few buttons, enter data, click a few buttons, and you get your analysis of the data. You can create starts and sketches. This is what I find most PGs enjoying themselves doing, making very colorful little things of age and sex and other things. Yeah, it is very nice and colorful, but make it of the relevant data, of the data that is going to make a difference to your aim and your objectives. The Microsoft Excel package is excellent for these things. That's more than enough. You don't have to go to anything more. Now you analyze your data, you search your data for looking out for any emerging. Is it supporting your question? Is it defeating your question? Are you getting a positive trend? Are you getting a negative trend? That will emerge by your analysis of the data. And this will have to be interpreted in terms of your aims and objectives. What data you've got, you have to create significance. You have to draw your bell curves, and remember your p-values are just down here, very little bit of value, which will tell you that there has been a difference in the study and the numbers that are given. And that is why the desired effect should fit into a p-value that will help say that the data collected is significant. Comprehensive siftings is the discussions. As a result of all the data, you have to discuss it. You have to tell them, yes, this is what was the data. The what happened? I've lost myself. Yeah, sorry. And the differences that you pick up will have to compare with your aims and objectives. You have to draw your conclusions and your solutions based on the results. These must match your aims and objectives, and they must, based on these, you can even pull out some recommendations or conclusions. Once these six have you reached this stage, it is only at this stage that you start writing your second part. You cannot write your second part and fit data in. You can't fit the only after the conclusion has occurred that you can write exactly about how you collected the data and how you drew up all these little facts and how you analyzed and how you discussed it. So this is the time where you need about a month's time to sit and write down all the work that you've done. You have to compose it all serially, and you have to write it down properly. You have to write your references in terms of superscript numbers and the appropriate reference written. I'll come to how you write references later. This is to be done for the first part and second part. It's a bit of a chore, but it is important that you write. You have to compile and stack. This is the bibliography. As I said, you write your references. You have to follow the Vancouver referencing pattern, and that is very commonly discussed in the net. That is for the articles, for the textbook references, for the electronic media references, for the YouTube type of references. Everyone has the data, and that will be used for uh, how you can serially put it so that the superscript number matches the same number with which you compile your data. The stamps, as I said, you have to have pictures for your first and second part. You need to number them correctly, give the proper legends, and put them into appropriate pages. Confidentiality is very important in all these things. Please ensure. I still see names coming up on x-rays. I still see faces and eyes being seen. These are not allowed. The areas of privacy also have to be marked out and blacked out. They are important. These maintain a certain moral standard while you prepare it. the Especially as shown when you have illustrations. Constraints and strictures. Now, constraints and strictures, after you've analyzed it, you will find out what your limitations of the study was. Your population was too small and underpowered. 2-hour study, or you have not had enough time to follow up. The period of follow up is not enough. Or during the study, you developed a complication, or you had to drop some cases from the study, or the follow up was inadequate. So, whatever the limitations of your study, it adds relevance to your findings. It is now that we write the synopsis, that is the abstract. Based on all these factors, you write a nice abstract, because the abstract is the only thing that the person reviewing is going to read. And when he has read it, he is going to go back and see, this is interesting, let me have a look. The other pages are not looked at by the evaluators. They look at the abstract, aims and objectives, and they directly go and see how you've been able to justify the aims and objectives in your results. It is the key to get the attention of the evaluator. And a few keywords can be taken out of the abstract, which can help you to get tell people what your thesis is about. It's also important to write a good introduction statement as to why you started the study, how you started the study, what made you do it. So I have said that you write the introduction after you finish the whole thing. It is you can write your introduction in the beginning, but over the course of time there will be changes which will make you have to change those words. So that is why you write your introduction later on. It should evoke interest so that the reader wants to go through the chapter. Corrections and scrutiny, now you give it to your guide and your department. You have to sit together. There are a couple of long hour meetings that will go on. There will be some questioning, and they'll say go back and change it. It's an endless cycle of changes. But if this has been done periodically during the study, during the work period, it is not so much at the end. Again, the mistake is the whole dissertation is completed and given to the boss, and then he says, okay, this is not done, that is not done, and again you have to go back up and down to correct it. And that you may have to correct some things which are so far behind in time that you are not able to do it. There will be long discussions with the academic board and the department. They'll find you the relevance of the study for the department. They'll approve your findings, and it'll kind of accept it. Okay, this is good. This is coming from our department. It is giving some information. We'll all put our signatures to it. Then you start doing the printing, setting and binding, the proper font and spacing, the proofreading it for topographical and typographical errors. Take your printouts, bind the book. Remember, you have to have pages for certification, pages for guide and institution. You must write your acknowledgements, your appendages of pro forma and master collection data sheets, and the appendix all should be written in. Always read your university or the board on the net. They will have certain statutes. This has to be done, that has to be done, this fee has to be paid, that form has to be paid. So make sure you've read all that and done all that. These are the requirements of your controlling body. Now take it up for your chief signature. This is signature and seal that will give the approval of the guide, the department, and head of institution. And this will certify the genuine conduct of the meeting, of the study thesis, as well as the location and period of study. Complete your stipulations, your forms. Some people want a CD also with it. Make sure that CD has been burnt and kept correct. The forms are properly paid. The many delays in theses, submission, and acceptance is at this level because these little points are not looked after. Remember, it is some non-medical person collecting the thesis and checking out its met all the requirements before they send it to the evaluators. These people look for these little things and try to find fault and hold back theses. So try and make sure that it's not done. And you submit it well in time. Your last point is submit before time. Retain the speed tracking numbers and the speed post numbers so that you know that you have some proof that your dissertation has been sent in, the number of copies and all that. Until you get your final acceptance, keep these in, keep it with you so that you have an idea of the where it is. Avoid that deadly deadline last minute business, please. We're sleeping overnight, not sleeping, getting it in all confused. You don't get a good job. A correctly scripted skill gives you a value. When it gets accepted, you can put it into your CV. It is a credit to you. It will tell people that you have done a certain amount of research. But when it does not get accepted, and if it lacks conformity and substance, it gets returned and it gets rejected. Perfection consists of not doing extraordinary things, but doing ordinary things extraordinary. Just simple things done regularly. That is how we will get it. Wish you all good luck and best wishes to all so that you get it. Good luck while doing it. Remember, this is the compliance schedule. I said this is the protocol. This is how you write your protocol in the first part, which is then sent. This is roughly the data, the number of pages in which it is not much. It's between 12 to 15 pages only. It is written properly so that the acceptance happens. Then your chapter setup. This is the in which you will put the general chapters, how it is done, the pages, and how you sequencing in the book. The part one consists of these little things. The part two will consist of the actual work that is done and your recommendations and bibliography to follow. The Canadian style of references to be used for articles. It's the author first. And when you have 6 or more authors, you can use et als. You would also need it for your textbook if it's a personal author or a group of authors, or it's an author chapter in a publication. These are all ways in which you write your references. Even electronic media need to have a way in which it is written. The connected sources, your references listing must be done like I wrote here, Lakshman Ramakrishna, evidence-based study and research methodology, a primer. Connected sources, that is the way you write it. Now, these have been my references for writing this article. These are the ones that I have used. Again, this is Dr. Ramakrishna's Medical Statistics for Beginners. Go through the whole book. This is a condensed slide of all the 40 little CSS points that will take you through from consulting your senior to your submission. The mantras for success is briefly a summary of what I've said. Research design, that you have to formulate the tongue properly. It should be feasible, try to be original. You should have enough subject and specimens, and make sure your analysis is not biased. Reviews are informed readers, but they're not necessarily experts. So they will want to see the health impact of your study and the clinical significance of your study. So bring those features out. Avoid very ambitious projects, a lot of interventions, a lot of research. That's not exactly our time to do it. Avoid complex projects. I like the Sagar Hospital who give very simple topics, OT registers, time taken for procedures, filling up of forms, very small topics, but done well, and they form very good basis for both audit and of study for theses dissertations. Avoid unnecessary tools. Make sure you have enough population so your study is properly powered, so your sample matches your results. When you have results where the sample size is not big enough, it is called an underpowered study. My usual way, keep it simple, short, scientific, and significant. Thank you. I'm sorry I've taken a little more than 45 minutes, but that was the schedule of the talk. There are lots and lots of things that go into the dissertation. Main thing is how you focus that question and get that sorted out, and the rest will just fall into place. I'm not sure how many people have followed this, but I'm open for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Rajan, for an excellent summary and a very nice explanation of what a thesis is and what research is all about. I'm sure the youngsters in the group will have some questions. Open to the postgraduates, please, for questions. Well, if there are no questions, can I ask for comments and maybe things to add, if any, from the seniors, please? Dr. Nuli, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir. I am there. First of all, thank you, sir. Thank you, Rajan, sir. It was wonderful. When we were postgraduate, sir, there were thesis like 20 interesting cases. Is this still continues? I just wanted to know.
Rajan, you want to take that? Okay, let me take it. He doesn't seem to be there at the moment. So this,
Yes,
this has been the biggest problem that we have. There must be a research question. And let me hold on for a sec because Rajan is calling me. Just hold on. Sorry, that's Rajan telling us that the generator, blew up in his apartment, so he's out of power and he's out of reach. So I will do the discussion part with all the other seniors here, and then we'll conclude the meeting. So this is your question is very valid. Even now we see a lot of projects saying, 20 interesting cases, or we did that many cases with no follow-up, with no nothing. In the gender, there is no research question. Let me put it in a very simple way. There is no research question. Without a research question, there is no project. And so when we evaluate papers, when we evaluate projects, we're very clear in saying there must be a clear-cut research question. And so a listing of certain operations, or just a listing of what is a profile of our injuries, what is a profile of bullgore injuries, a very common topic. They will say 20 bullgore injuries, what happened? That has absolutely no relevance for scientific evaluations. There must be something, some intervention, some aspect of it that is done.
So from the Karnataka state chapter, I wanted to ask you, sir, because we are all seniors here.
Yeah.
The first medical college was started in Karnataka way back in 1924 at Mysore. That is different, but postgraduate degrees came later. So many thesis topics have come now in different medical colleges of the Karnataka, both private as well as government setup. We should have, by this time, we should have a data of, leave apart these 20 interesting cases. The remaining, what topics have been studied all these years, lot of water has flown in Kaveri. So we should look at the data, and I'm sorry for my words, still this what you were telling lacunae in a thesis topic giving to the postgraduates, especially in so many institutes I am seeing. I don't know the sanctity of that. It's really the postgraduate is working or he is helped by the guide, and how much statistical analysis is done. So how about taking this as a challenge by the state chapter itself? And for the last 20 years or 30 years, if finance is needed, we are ready to spend also. And what are the postgraduate topics and what all we have achieved all these years? We're taking all the medical college topics of MS postgraduate topics, and how many were repeated, and what ultimately what we did with that, what we achieved with that. Can it be a good response, sir? Going for analysis?
I think it's an excellent idea. In fact, I'm tempted to initiate it myself. I'll make you a co-author and we'll see what has been done. I think it's an excellent idea.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Shivram, any comments, please? Shivram, are you there? Okay.
Dr. Kohli,
Yeah, go on.
that will be a good dissertation topic.
Yes, sir.
Actually, even though some boards and universities may not accept it, I think it's an excellent, it's a question, it's a very good research question.
For the association, we can do, sir.
Yes.
For the association.
I think it's a good idea.
For the association.
I will think on those lines. We'll see what I can do. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now, any comments on the talk or anything you want to add to what Rajan has already said, please? Muli, sir?
No, sir. It is good, but I feel, sir, we will do it in exercise also. We have to take, sir. There should be workshop on his talk. There should be workshop. Then only it will enter the heads of our PGs.
Yeah, as you know, we have been doing that.
Workshop is best.
Workshop is being done, but the important thing is that we need more enthusiastic teachers and students coming forward to participate. We do find that there is a bit of a lacuna in that, but we'll see. We'll keep trying, and over the next few years, things may improve. Shivram, please.
We have two postgraduates who are newly joined, Dr. Ritika and Dr. Madan. Can you just introduce yourself and ask questions? Madan?
Yes, sir. Regarding the class, it was very informative, sir. I mean,
Yes.
there were many things which was, I was in the confusion which was cleared by CS Rajan, sir. So it was very informative class, sir. Nothing.
Yeah, you are searching for the research question and the topic. No, you have something to ask.
Still, I have to work upon that, sir.
Okay. Dr. Ritika?
Good evening, sir. So that class was very informative, sir.
No, you want ask how to take the thesis topic or anything? Dr. Lakshman will answer you. Still, you have to work on that.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Before we conclude, is that it, Shiva? Anything else to add, Shiva?
That's all, I think.
Yeah,
That's
okay. So before we conclude, there are 3 or 4 points I thought I would add, if I may, with Rajan's permission. One of them is that to approach your thesis work or research work as a requirement with no enthusiasm, I think is very, very sad. It is a requirement because the university and the DNB board has felt that you need to have experience in some kind of research and thesis writing. So it is as important for you as learning the skills of surgery, learning the skills of passing an exam, for example. So you have to really approach it with equal importance. And over the years, I have failed in getting this point across to our postgraduates. They're never enthusiastic. We're always goading them. And the day we stop pushing them, like I have done this year, there is nothing done. Everybody is sleeping, even in a so-called active place like Sagar. To give you an example, we were supposed to have a research meeting on the 25th of July to look for the research topics for the next year. And it is now the 25th of September, and not a single meeting has been held so far. I'm not upset, I'm not angry, I'm not sad, but I'm just saying that this attitude of postgraduates who do not think that thesis writing or doing a project is as important as learning skills of surgery and getting surgery knowledge is very wrong. I think unless you change it, you will definitely never become a good surgeon. The second, Nuli sir, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, sir. You finish up, sir. You finish up, I'll come.
The second thing I wanted to add was that there is he called it an institutional review board, IRB. There's an ethical committee. So when you write up your protocol, your project for a thesis or a research project, it has to be passed by the ethical committee. And so please understand that takes time. It doesn't happen very easily. And ethical committees meet once a month or once in 2 months sometimes, and you have to push the hospital to convene an ethical committee meeting. So you've got to factor that in. In the 3 months that you have to finish your work quickly within 1.5 months, in my view, maximum 2 months, and get it through. Otherwise, you will not be able to have an ethical committee approved study going on to the board. And we have also said that you must, Rajan briefly mentioned about it, there must be complete honesty. I find that people, when they can't find the numbers, cook up numbers. When they have not, when they do not have a data point, for example, you have to measure somebody's pain score at the end of 12 hours after an operation, you miss it. But next morning after 24 hours, you do it, or you cook up some figure and put it in your data sheet. I think that is something that we should completely forget about. Just like the copy-paste culture that we all have. It must be completely original, it must be honest and completely transparent. If there are some data points missing, you accept that there are some missing data points. And that will be a limitation of the study, but so be it. But honesty is something which is extremely important. And when you write a thesis, do not think that that is the end of your work. As you either submit it to the university or submit it to the DNB board. You can always get a paper out of your thesis work. In Sagar, we don't normally do it very much. We have done it on past occasions, but it is not a routine. I want it to be a routine. Every thesis that you write, the way you write a paper is very different from the way you write a thesis. We'll go into it later. But the data, when you have a good research question, you use the same research question to write a thesis, And the data from that project that you have done can be used to write a paper. And writing a paper, I think, must be a goal for every young postgraduate. And you do that, you will learn a lot of things. And, you know, we've said it several times, Rajan has reiterated today, you will become a better surgeon. That's all I have to say. Dr. Nooli, for his comments before we conclude, please.
Sir, this thesis topic, I don't know about DNB. In MS, separate marks are not there for thesis. Am I correct?
There is no marks for thesis as such, as far as I know, but you need to have it passed before you can write the exam, sir. If your thesis is not
there,
passed, yeah.
But what I was suggesting, in the sense, examiners also can go through this. What is his thesis? What he has done in exams? Also, no one asks about your thesis.
In theory, they have to, sir. They have to ask about it, but they don't do it. But yes, it is. It's a part of the process. In fact, even in their formative development, when I can only talk about DNB with authority. When we have they're called FATs, formative assessment tests. Every year they go through it, and we as examiners look at their thesis, their data collection, everything is done as part of their theory, you know, along with their clinicals and their viva with instruments and X-rays. Even their thesis is questioned on, and there are separate marks for it.
In MS, it is not there, sir. If I'm correct, it's not there.
Okay.
So we lose interest in doing the work of that thesis unless there is marks are there. I don't know. That's the thing.
Rajan, welcome back.
Sorry,
glad that you got your power back.
I have to go to the only room where there is a light in our house. So
yeah. All right. Anyway,
the main thing is that Dr. Nooli, the evaluation is done by a separate set of people, and unless there is a thesis acceptance certificate, you're not allowed to do the final exam. You're not given the permission to write the exam until your thesis is submitted, or if you have written, it's submitted late and you're doing the exam, your results are not announced until your thesis has been accepted. In the MS stream, you're supposed to carry your thesis to the examination, and there is supposed to be in the afternoon session some questioning by the examiner on the thesis. Now, unfortunately, the fate of the candidate is decided in the morning itself, and the afternoon becomes slightly irrelevant. But the level of knowledge, even I went for my exam in 1981. The father of the President, Dr. Raghuram's father, Dr. Chalapati Rao, asked me about my thesis, asked me about prostate and what you do and how, because at that time TURP was just coming in and I had studied TURP was open. So he asked me about TURP and other things. So it depends on the examiner and the type of examiner. I think the thesis process makes the person a better surgeon.
Correct.
all right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending.
No.
And sorry, any other comments, please? Okay, no other comments. Thank you very much, and a very warm good night to all of you. Good night.
Yeah. Sweet dreams.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. Very nice presentation. Excellent.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yeah.